Lindsay is bringing in some more chairs. Most of the blue chairs were put into the room first, and then all the...
Can't hear anything!
Well, just... Shh. No, this is the way that's on. Now it's on. It was on. Okay. So I said Lindsay's bringing in some more chairs. Most of the blue chairs were behind all the heavy tables, so it was a little hard to grab them in a hurry. So we'll do the best we can. So I want to welcome everybody to, I guess what's part 2 of a 3-part series. Part 1 was on the radio on Saturday. I hope a lot of you got a chance to hear all the candidates on the radio. I thought it was a really well-spent hour and a quarter. I also thought Albini was masterful in the way he asked his questions and what he elicited, and truly a Hornby way to have each candidate provide a song for the segue to the next candidate. Not that they sang, but that they recommended and was played. And was quite a nice way to have it. So this this is the first of the in-person all-candidate sessions. There'll be a second one next Sunday at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And here comes some more chairs. Look at that. And Lindsay's with it. It's all right. So this first of the in-person sessions is hosted by Hirra. Okay. My name is Daniel, and I'm the Vice President of Hirra, so that's why I get to talk first. And this is Jenny, who is the co-moderator for the evening. And these are your candidates, and we will sit just a little bit farther out of the way once we get going. The first thing, we want to just go over, hopefully, a few ground rules with everybody. Our hope is that the evening is so issue-focused and so wonderful that we have almost nothing to do up here. That's our hope. So the first thing is to say that we'll have 2 ways of asking questions. We have a microphone up here, and we can do a little lineup if we want once we get started. And we didn't have control over that one. And if some people feel a little bit shy or uncomfortable about standing at the microphone, on that white, what's it called? Plinth. Back there, you'll find paper and pencils and pens. So if you want to write down a short question and give it to one of us to read on your behalf, we'll be happy to do that. But otherwise, we can just have people line up. So now I'm going to turn it over to Jenny to go on to the next phase.
Hello. And I will be going around after we go over the guidelines too. And you can hand me the pieces of paper if you have them ready now. So to some of you, this will look familiar. These are the guidelines that are posted at every Hirra meeting. They're basically rules of conduct and respect to help make a meeting be efficient and pleasant and educational. So I'm just going to point out to you number 1, 2, and 5, because they're most relevant to what we're doing tonight. So everyone is welcome here. Please leave any old grudges you have at the door. We're here to learn from each other tonight. Assume that everyone has a positive motivation and a valuable perspective. We're all here because we want to celebrate our ability to have democracy. So let's just start with that. And number 5, focus on issues rather than individuals and personalities, and that goes to what Daniel is going to talk about next.
Okay. So we want to just, I hope this is stating the obvious. My kids call me Obvious Man. So just to state the obvious, we're here to hear what the candidates think about the issues, not what we have to say about them. So please formulate what you have to say as a question. Make it issue focused, please, and keep it to 1 minute or less. And the candidates to whom you've addressed the question will have 2 minutes to respond to each question. You can ask your question of all the candidates, you can ask it of some of them, or you can ask it of only one, if you so choose. We'd like to ask that we have 2 bells. One of them is the bell for saying your time is up, and it sounds like this. It's very sweet. That's my doorbell. And then we have this one, which is if you're going off topic, If you're starting to make a speech, if you're getting personal, any of those things, which we know won't happen, but just in case they did, we've got this one, which doesn't sound as nice, so we hope not to have to use it at all. So when there's 15 seconds left, either for a question or for a response, although I won't have a microphone, I'll just say 15 seconds. You know, so just the fact that I will have said anything will mean it was 15 seconds, because I won't say anything else. And at the time limit, we'll ring the little cowbell doorbell. We're aiming to end at 9:30. So you can understand why we want to have time limits on everything, so that people get a chance to be heard, because you can just imagine, you know, people speak even for 2 minutes at a time, and 6 people speak. Every time we do that, that's 12 to 15 minutes. So that, I think, is it. Is it, Jen?
I believe so.
Okay. So what we thought was, we did a lot of conversation back. Does everybody knows everybody in sequence along here? Should we just make a quick, Ron Emerson, Tony Law, Fred Hunt, Alex Allen, and William Thomas. However you like. Okay, so these are our candidates. And we did a lot of conversation around how the evening should go. We all agreed that we didn't want to have prepared questions in advance, but we all agreed that one opening question from us would be a good way to go. And then when each one has had a chance to respond to that question, they get 3 minutes each for this one. Then we will start the speakers list, and Jenny will go around, and if any of you have written down questions, she'll pick them up. Okay, are we all right with that? Is everybody okay with the ground rules? Good, okay, great. So our opening question is to give each candidate a chance to say a few words about the 2 or maybe 3 most important issues that they want to work on if elected to the trust. Okay, so that's the first question, and I don't know how we should do that. We'll just start at this end and go down. All right.
Okay, that sounds good.
And you should say they have.
Yeah, I did.
3 minutes. Starting now.
Yes.
The reason I'm running is because we put in a community plan that was brought to public hearing in 2002. And there's a bunch of policies that have not yet made it to bylaw. So when people make applications, they say, well, the OCP says this, but the bylaws say that. They say, well, what gives there? So a lot of time has gone by, and my feeling is that a lot of the people that had input into the 2002 OCP either have moved on or passed on. And I think that we should be a little more timely in our delivery of service, in the sense that our bylaws reflect what the community's agreed on, and we move on from there. So that would be my first priority. The second priority that I would like to see happen would be that we get the ISLA land donation up and running to the point that the trust can help with the rezoning application, so that the sooner that we can get that project actually off the ground, the better, I think. The third thing that I would like to address is actually putting on the table for all the community to discuss is housing options. There's a lot of different ways we can approach this. There's Habitat for Humanity, there is what the work ISLA's doing, and there's also regulations that we can look at as a community within our own bylaws. So those are my 3 main deals.
Thanks, Ron, and thanks to Daniel and Jenny for setting this up. As a trustee, there's always 2 things I kind of hold out there. One, of course, is the object of the Islands Trust, to preserve and protect the trust area. And the other is the community vision that a lot of us were involved in 2003, which visualized a diverse and vibrant and sustainable community. And so in thinking of my priorities, those are the 2 things I hold in mind. My number 1 priority is to complete the review of our official community plan and land use bylaw. And the second one is linked to that, is looking at how to increase community participation in that and other processes. As an experienced trustee, I realize you need to leave the space for current and emerging issues. Current issues, I think, are advocacy around BC Ferries smart meters, Water Act, there's a number of things like that, and relationships with the First Nation. Emerging issues, as Ron mentioned, is the anticipated application from ISLA, which will need a lot of time and attention to make sure that goes through in a timely and constructive way. The reason for looking at the OCP and land use bylaws, those are the core documents, that guide applications, that look at how we live together on the land. And we're halfway through a process we started in 2009 when we solicited from the community what are the key topics to look at. And those that came out were housing and economic opportunities. And so the Advisory Planning Commission conducted a couple of forums on that. We got a lot of good advice. And now we've come up with some draft policies. I think for housing is probably the most comprehensive details of housing opportunities I've seen in the trust area. I'm really keen to discuss those. We've also come up with some draft policies around economic opportunities, such as respect to looking at home occupations, ways of expanding those, looking at existing commercial land, are there other uses that could be used there, looking at how to entertain applications for new commercial zoning, looking at other uses on agricultural land that can sustain farming. So with respect to community involvement, that's always a challenge. We've tried different things. The APC had pizza and a local facilitator that brought a number of people out. I've got a couple of ideas. One is to have a group, an advisory group on communications and consultation. Could involve a younger person, an older person, a busy person, a reclusive person, and certainly a parent that could say, what's the best way to get messages out to different segments of the community and get them involved, whether it's electronically, face-to-face, small groups, large groups. Because we can't do our job unless we hear everybody's piece of the truth. And that's my feeling, is that everybody's got a piece of the truth and we need to hear each other in a cooperative way. Other things that are happening that I want to see to fruition around communication is we've asked our staff to come up with clear language notices and advertisements so people can clearly see what we're asking for. To have signs, right? 15 seconds. And we're also revamping the website to make that a little bit more friendly so that people can engage that way if they wish.
Thanks, Tony. And thank you, Jenny and Daniel, for coordinating this, and for all of you for being here tonight. I have two and a third one in terms of priorities. The first is, we've been hearing a lot about for the last year, the local trust committee, and that is accessibility of the trust and being heard and actually having one's views taken into account. That's something we try to do, I try to do all the time. Clearly, from what feedback we have been getting, we need to do more of that. And I'm thinking of ways that that might be done in a practical sense, including such things as putting the agendas for the trust meetings in the grapevine in the same manner that Hirra does, perhaps, with the agenda spelled out so that people know clearly what's coming up on in the meetings. Tony mentioned plain English. Yes, I think seeing something that it's PID number so-and-so, plan such and such is nice if you really know where to go to translate that, but it's a heck of a lot better if it's the name and the address of the applicant. It makes it easier to follow. Posting of significant development applications, I see, would be something we should talk about. It's something that doesn't necessarily happen in rural areas because people, generally know, and it's more of an urban sort of way to advise what's going on in an area, but that's something we might talk about. But I certainly heard that we need to do more in terms of listening and hearing what people are saying, and that's an overall priority for myself in the next term, would be in the next term. I would also see working to complete the update of the 2002 community plan and the 1993 land use bylaw. A lot of work was done this term on the official community plan and getting it to the stage where there's a draft ready for presentation to the community. It's come out a little bit so far to one meeting here, but it's getting ready to come out. We don't want to put it out there until, I don't want to see it out there until the land use bylaw is ready to accompany it. What happened last time, the official community plan came out and the bylaw got left behind, if you will. I wouldn't like to see that happen. They should be coming forward as a package. And lastly, one thing that is mentioned at the beginning of our last term, that was a priority for everyone. I haven't heard a lot about it since, but I know it's a big issue. is bylaw enforcement, and we just introduced a new step in bylaw enforcement procedures that should be helpful to simplify that process.
Hi, I'm Alex, if you don't know. So basically, most of you are probably wondering why I'm running for Island Trustee, and I'll say over the years many people have approached me, saying that you should run, you've got energy, you care about the community, and I've always run the other way and said, that you're crazy. But suddenly I'm apparently crazy because now I am running for Island Trustee, and I'm running because I'm concerned about, well, basically the community feels like they're not listened, and there's probably a lot of other issues there that we need to address. But essentially, we need to, as an Island Trustee, we need to be able to make informed decisions, we need to care, and we need lots of energy. And that's what I've definitely discovered just by running in this campaign is a lot of, this is just half the piles of paper I've been reading. It's about, it's just amazing, the emails and bylaws, and there's a lot of information, and I commend you guys for absorbing it all. It's quite amazing. I have served on the ABC committee in 2007, so I'm not completely ignorant of bylaws and the OCP. I will say that if I am elected, I will do lots and lots of research. I do like to research. I like legalese, and if I don't know the answer, I will try and find the answer. In the last few days, I've had the opportunity to knock on doors and get people's opinions and concerns, and what I've heard from most people, not a lot, because lots of people wouldn't answer their door. It's amazing. Sunday is a very dead day in Hornby, even at 1 o'clock, even with an extra hour, I discovered. So some people are saying there's too much process, not enough action, reactive, not proactive to our needs and wants. And the last person was, I'm having a bath, can you come back? So my first priority, if I'm elected, will be to take action on land use with a collective wisdom, listening to all community members, trying to make most of us happy. There's a lot of us here with different opinions, but I think, we've managed to get this far together, and we're still all getting along. I think we need to be a very vibrant and innovative community. We need to keep on being that way. And by that, we need year-round opportunities. We need to create more commercial opportunities for new local businesses through appropriate zoning and working with local agencies. Centrally clustered service areas, mixed-use zoning, these are all part of the Hornby Island Vision Statement of 2003. So I will work to ensure that all those 500 people that did work on that vision to not forget it and bring it back, and basically, as I said, we are faced with a delicate balance between protecting the wonderful community we all helped to create and finding ways to exist economically. And I thought this was too short. Okay, and another paragraph, but you'll hear about it later. Okay, thank you very much.
Good evening. I have to say I'm honored and heartened by your presence here tonight. The only difference between me being up here running for the Islands Trust and you out there is that you know better. I always like to look around the room and add up the ages of everyone here. And I would suggest that your true local government is the sum of the life experience, professional expertise, caring, creativity, commitment, and love for this island, represented by everyone on this island. And I want you to know this. My allegiance is first to my island and my community, and then to an Islands Trust that serves the community which it is elected and paid to serve. I have some major concerns tonight. Given the 2 unpopular bylaws imposed upon us this year, pending restrictions on home vacation rentals, and a 15-unit condominium at the gateway to a rural island sanctuary, treasured by those who have chosen to live here and by those who dream of coming here, we cannot carry on as if nothing serious is amiss. Many of us are here because we are going out of trust with the trust. What I am hearing as a reporter is again and again, how did this happen? There seems to be a growing disconnect between the directives we are repeatedly given our elected representatives and the decisions they are making. What deeply concerns me is that after a series of bad calls around process, we are still being told that the trust followed established procedures, not that these procedures might be seriously flawed. Of course, STVRs have been, well, they've been just about labeled a social disease. The good news is that while the new bylaw offers a wider range of use defined as vacation home rentals, the bad news is that these pending restrictions are already stressing out vacation rental operators. They are confused by ambiguous wording and by the threat of selective enforcement. They are telling me that the loss of weekend and year-round rentals and possible restrictions in advertising could seriously hurt their business, and I promise I will address your concerns because the economic lifeblood of this island is directly tied to your fate. Another question being asked is, why does our local trust committee take directions from the trust executive and not from the constituents they are supposed to serve? I suggest this might damage democracy. Whether it's inappropriate condos, the selective targeting of our community plan, or limiting home vacation rentals, people are asking, why are we electing trustees if all they do is follow staff's instructions? It's easy. It's easy for anyone to say they are listening. The proof is in the outcome. To truly hear is to heed. If majority chooses me as your trusted representative, I guarantee I will not just listen to your concerns, I will act in your interests. Thank you.
Okay, thanks to everybody for staying within the time limit. And,
You need a microphone?
oh, well,
Just one minute.
yeah, okay. I only need it for a second, please. Okay, so I only need the microphone to say that it's now time for your questions, and whoever would like to come and just stand here. I think maybe we'll do maybe 5 people at a time in line, so is that all right? And if anybody feels that they're having difficulty getting their place, just signal me and we'll work it out, all right? Again, 1 minute for each question and 2 minutes for each response, okay? All right?
Thank you. I have a quick question for all the candidates. I have been told that the Islands Trust organization originated in the United Nations, and this idea of preserve and protect seems to be the catchphrase that runs through a lot of the issues that concern island life. So I would like to ask each candidate to define preserve and protect. What does it mean to each one of you as individuals? Maybe just take a minute each to define preserve and protect.
You don't have to go in order.
It doesn't have to go this way. Preserve and protect. Well, I'll never forget Jim Gordon saying, if you want to preserve something, you need formaldehyde. If you want to protect something, you need an army. And I don't think Hornby wants either of those things. But that aside, to my mind, preserving means when we take the ferry to Hornby Island, we see the landscape. We drive across the island, or we ride, or we take a horse across the island. And things don't look completely radically different. There's no high rises, there's no duplexes. It's, things are pretty much how we remember them. And I think that's the goal of the Islands Trust, is basically so things don't get out of hand. Of course, the whole reason for the Islands Trust was rampant subdivision happening in the Southern Gulf Islands, when you've got like 820 parcel subdivisions, and things just went crazy too fast. So I think that sort of the slow, progressive approach the Islands Trust takes is appropriate. I think that's why I live here. I think that's why most people live here. So that's the preserve that part of it. And protect, to my mind, it's protecting from over-savvy developers that see an opportunity and dollar dollar signs come up in their mind and they want to cash in. So basically, to protect us against that element.
The Islands Trust was formed actually by a committee of the legislature that went around, travelled all the islands and got everybody's perspectives on what were the issues and the concerns, and is to preserve and protect the unique environment and amenities of the island. It's a very distinctive part of the world. And rather than one individual saying what this means, it's actually been a collective process. There's an Islands Trust policy statement that was put together in the early 90s, went to every island, everybody had input into it. And there's three parts. It's also reflected in our community plan. The first is protection of ecosystems, unique ecosystems on the islands. The second part is stewardship of resources, like water and farmland and forest and marine resources. And the third part is sustaining the communities and the character of the communities. And those are the three elements. And on each island, we have to collectively decide, what those look like. What do those actually mean? So rather than me answering my question, that question from a personal perspective, I see my role is engaging all of us to put flesh on those definitions and pinpoint what are those things that we all collectively value about the island that we want to hold on to in terms of the unique environment and the unique amenities of the island.
Preserving and protecting the unique amenities, as had just been said, haven't anything really to add to that as a definition. It's no accident, I guess, that what is being sought to preserve and protect is something that I think we all hold dear. I think that's an interest that is shared here on Hornby and throughout the Gulf Islands, and it's certainly something dear to my heart. This is a particularly beautiful and unique area of Canada and indeed the world. And the legislature recognized that. That was a social credit government actually that brought it in, wrote the legislation, and was brought in under an NDP government. But the recognition was there that this was a special area and needed protection. And what, of course, focused that was the major subdivisions on Pender Island and other places, but here on Hornby in our two big subdivisions, where it was seen what unchecked development could cause. Since then, a number of protections have come in, including in our own OCP, 10 features which developments must meet in terms of form and character, it's called, for any development that have to be met. And those include things like height, nature of the cladding on the buildings, and screening from the road, lighting, those sorts of issues. It's something that's written in, and it fits with the trust mandate, and I think it fits very much with where we're at as a community.
Preserve and protect. Preserve, as the previous, Tony and Fred, it's preserving our uniqueness. The Hornby Island is a very unique island, and most of the islands in this whole area are very unique, and we have managed to keep it as such. We also need to protect from high density development, protect ourselves from turning into Salt Spring Island, which is really not polarizing the community down there. We need to also preserve and protect our ability to have earning to make a living on this island as well. So we need to look at that, not just an environment preserving and protecting, but also preserving and protecting our sustainability to exist on this island and keep all of us here to keep this island alive.
These are all excellent and heartfelt answers. But can we take this for a moment to a deeper level? When I first arrived on Salt Spring many years ago, the main street was gravel, there was a Kanakas, there was a red and white. That was about it. The spiritual vibration, if you will, of that island was so strong, so intense, I felt it could never be broken. I was wrong. unfettered development, 6 condominiums, environmental assaults on our water and our forests, a fractured community. The heart of that community finally leaving the island broke the spirit of a very powerful island. And I am deeply concerned. I am running for the island's trust to do everything in my power to assure that does not happen here. We need to preserve and protect and watch out not only for the physical amenities of this gem of the Gulf Islands, but for the spirit of this island, the people and other inhabitants who live here. Because folks, if we lose spirit, if that spirit is broken, it can never be recovered. And that's what makes this island so very special.
Hi, Pete Kimmerly, Roburn Road. In my perception, there's been 3 projects or 3 issues that have been kind of divisive on Hornby Island in the last term. Short-term rentals, the Four Corners project, and the Thatch project. I would like to ask each candidate to say whatever they want about the 2 development projects, the Thatch project and the Four Corners project.
The projects are very important, they're significant projects, and they are projects which brought forth very different views from the community members. The Thatch had a community information meeting and a public hearing that brought forth a number of people from the community, and at the public hearing and in written submissions, a predominant feeling was that this was a good project to support. Some supported it outright, others supported it with a need for covenants that would protect aspects of it, including parking, water, and those issues. An attempt was made to address those. They were addressed in the final bylaw. The process there has been lengthy, and had been lengthy. And it was that I was referring to earlier when I was saying we were hearing that people were feeling they weren't being heard. That process, particularly in terms of the public hearing, some people had expressed surprise that it had happened and they really hadn't heard about it. That is something I take very seriously. Everything had been done as according to what was required in terms of advertising and getting the word out. A number of reasons, perhaps, that hadn't got through as it should have. That's a real concern. Now, certainly people did get through, the word did get through, because we did have approximately 40 people at the public hearing and a number of submissions came in. However, the word was out, not the word was out, but we've heard since that it was not a good process. The Four Corners,
Fred?
I'll come back to.
I guess I've got the mics. Everybody ready to go? I can go. Okay. All right. Yeah, those were agonizing processes, I think, for us and for the community when you get big applications like that. And people wonder, okay, well, why were they treated the way they were? And from my perspective, it all goes back to the community plan. And that's why the community plan review is so important, because that provides guidance of how you look at applications and what the designation of land is. And from my perspective, the reason the Four Corners didn't proceed was because it would have required substantial changes to the community plan. And it's better to do planning proactively rather than by application, for us to sit back and say what kind of development we want to have. And this is something we've put into the draft of the present community plan we're working on, is guidelines for an application. If something like that, the Four Corners comes in. So ahead of time we say, okay, if there's going to be this kind of application, what are the things that we need to consider? And if the community is clear about that, then it reduces the controversy when the application comes in, because the community and the applicant have got a good idea of the parameters that have to be considered. The other thing was I really encouraged those applicants to consult with the community before they put in their application, knowing it would be controversial, so they had an opportunity to shape their application in response to community input. And unfortunately, they didn't do that. That did happen with the thatch, however, because I made the same request to the applicant there. He held an open house, provided an opportunity for people to provide input, made the application, and the application that land was already zoned for commercial use. Nothing has changed in the way of lot coverage, height, setbacks, all that remains the same kind of uses, but slight change in uses. As Fred said, we went through, we had the public hearing. I biked around the island, or drove around the island actually, biked halfway around, drove the other half, put up posters everywhere. There was double page ads in the Grapevine. We booked New Horizons for the next morning thinking lots of people would turn up. They didn't. But most people that did come were supportive, and they raised some issues. We spent the next year dealing with those issues, and subsequently we heard some concerns. As Fred said, you're always learning something in this job, and one thing I've learned is we need to go the extra mile beyond what we've done to try and publicise things. You think two ads in the Grapevine would be enough, but it wasn't. So that's really triggered something for me to say, okay, we've got to do more in the future.
Go ahead.
From an outside perspective, I found the Four Corners and thatch very different in the whole process of with the community involved. I found that Four Corners was definitely lots of reactions, and it makes sense because it's changing the complete zoning. It was on the busiest intersection of the island. It was very overzealous in terms of what they wanted to have on that site. There were some areas I liked the ideas of some of the suggestions, which was the work and the studio work places. I thought that could be something down on Hornby Island, but maybe not in that actual location. And they did listen, and a lot of people in the community didn't want it, so it didn't go through. The thatch, I've heard many stories that the signatures were taken at the bar on Friday night, where everybody wants to sign something on a Friday night at the bar. And also, when it was introduced, the architect, Bo Helliwell, he talked about how the thatch and the restaurant was the social center and hub of the community, and we really got to keep it. And yet, on the other hand, it's going to be a 4-season opportunity for the people that buy into it, for the resort. So it was kind of like it came out as for the thatch and the community, but yet the resort side does not sound like it's definitely for the community. I'm not sure how they're going to deal with the water use. I mean, there's a lot of still questions about that. And I think some people are still not satisfied, but it's almost gone through, or it's almost gone through, I'm not quite sure. I hear there's some rumors circulating that I'm not going to comment on. And I'm disappointed that there isn't any amenities beyond the thatch and the restaurant for, like the pub and the restaurant for laundromats anymore, because we do have to have another laundromat on this island, and not necessarily there. But yeah, there's my 3 cents worth.
When I first saw the big sign in the corner and attended the open house for Four Corners, I thought, this might be cool. It had some innovative features. It had a community garden. It was inclusive of the community. It combined workplaces with living places. In the end, I signed the petition against it because in the end I felt this is too much, too soon on this location. It was simply too big, too grandiose. If it had been scaled back, it might have gone a little bit further. I feel very strongly that the condominium development at the thatch was falsely framed with an initial petition that held hostage the saving of the pub, so-called, for higher density, without ever mentioning in that petition the pub would be torn down and that a 15-unit condominium would be built. I am very concerned that 13 campsites, rarely used, were traded for condominiums. I don't think they equate. I'm concerned that a petition at the end of this process, with even more signatures against this development, was disallowed by the Islands Trust planner. By the way, it was filled with pages of information on actual water use at the spit and the very tenuous water supply there. To put a condominium development at the gateway to our island, I think, is not the message we want to send. At my market table, I was told again and again by off-island visitors, we are not coming to Hornby to see condominiums. I'm extremely concerned, as are the citizens on the spit, of water use. We're talking 45 toilets here. Of course, we're told they won't be all flushed at once. 45 toilets, 15 showers, 15 washing machines, 15 dishwashers. 15 seconds. I think it's completely inappropriate. If it could be scaled back, it might be more acceptable to this community.
Okay, yeah, last but not least. My feeling on the Four Corners was that I didn't feel that there was enough due process, enough room for compromise. I think, sorry? Sorry? I didn't think that the process was long enough. I think that there wasn't enough compromise looked at, and I think that due process, given the application fee and all that, and all the work that went into it, I think the whole thing was nipped in the bud before there was any real discussion. I think that at the very least, a public hearing would have given the local trust committee more of an opportunity to hear what the other side thought about the project. So I think that in a way, the whole community was let down because, in fact, the community plan does speak to areas of commercial development, and the Four Corners is identified. So it seems to me that the whole thing was short-circuited and more discussion needed to happen. With respect to the thatch, I think that it was a due process that was followed through. I think that everybody had a full heads up on what was going on. My personal opinion, I don't think really matters, because I think what's important is due process, and due process was that less people felt freaked out about it than, you know, seems to be happening right now. It seems like sort of after the fact there's a lot of reaction, so that's my opinion.
Okay, there are two written questions on here. I'll just do them one and get to the next one later. Given that we know that Hornby and its, I should preface this by saying this question is for Will, Alex, and Ron. Given that we know that Hornby and its community are governed at the municipal level by two entities, Regional District and the Islands Trust, and that the division between the two administrations consists of the Islands Trust having a specific responsibility for planning, and the Regional District responsible for all other matters, such as school and health districts, what is the context in which you, the individual candidate, will act in respect of the issues you have already commented on in your own introductory material? For example, the environment, housing, or jobs.
Good one. Good question.
Yeah. It's a very difficult question. Well, the regional district, of course, takes care of our services with respect to waste management, noise issues, those sort of things. Islands Trust is strictly land use planning. So my feeling is that the Islands Trust can work on housing issues because it's obviously a land use issue. And what was the other one?
The environment, housing, or jobs.
The environment. I think hands-on environmental protection happens at the grassroots level on Hornby. If you look at the committees that take care of the parks and whatnot, it's all people that live here. So I think that the relationship between the regional district and Hornby Island is a fairly positive one in terms of parks, and I think that they're letting us take the lead. In terms of employment, I I do appreciate the fact that we are getting some support for our economic enhancement and our recreation fund from the regional district. I think that it's been a good benefit. That's the best I can do on this one.
I'll go along with that, and I'll add that the Trust Act actually gives the Islands Trust the power of a local government. They use those words, in fact. We're not just a land use committee, if you will, as I thought until I started researching this. We can actually act as local government. So that brings it back to us in terms of protecting the environment, attracting young families so that we have a school here regardless of CRD regulations. If we don't have pupils, we won't have a school, we will be in trouble. But I think that we have the authority in our local trust committee, granted by the Act, and in our community to take the lead in protecting and enhancing our own interests. And I would also add to that, I think the last thing we want to do is entertain any thought of becoming a municipality. I know Salt Spring considered that while I was there and decided that was not the way to go. I second that. But again, consider that this is your local government. You are your local government. We are our local government.
I'm not sure whether it was about regarding our introduction. Okay, so, well, as an Islands Trust, and it is land use policies, and basically for job opportunities, we're going to have to look at rezoning certain areas. I think we'd like to look at where the credit union is now. I know the Hirra owns that property, and whether we could work with other agencies to have other businesses, local businesses to be there, because we only have really one downtown, and there's so many great business ideas out there that can't be implemented because of our zoning. And it'd be nice to have a year-round restaurant. It would be nice to have a year-round laundromat, perhaps, in another location. A large art gallery that has everybody's art in it. And I mean, there's so many other opportunities. The environment, well, we do spend a lot of time working on the environment. Environment is there, so we could go from, well, dare I say it, the smart meter, that is affecting our environment, and we can do something about that altogether. And yeah, I think it's all about zoning and in terms of getting some more commercially zoned spots. And I hear there is opportunity for a light industrial area too. Thank you.
I'm not going to follow up. I'm glad somebody asked that last question because I'm going to follow up on that. There's a lot of nice things about living on the islands, Gulf Islands, but it comes at a price. We pay big time. Our motto should be taxes twice and make it hurt. For instance, we pay our road taxes for the highway system, and then we pay extra for our marine highway system. Same thing as the Islands Trust. Sorry, Will, this isn't local government. This is only, the Islands Trust, that is, only responsible for land use management. That's not local government. But being a Gulf Islander, we pay more than anybody else in the province for land use management. We already pay taxes to the regional district.
You have 10 seconds to ask your question.
I'll get there. This sounds like a rant, but I do have a question.
Take mine.
10% of our taxes goes to Islands Trust. More expensive than anybody else in BC. I'd like to ask each of you what you could do or what you could think of to mitigate those costs. Thanks.
There we go. I share your concern, and I've been a voice at the Islands Trust Council about trying to keep things down. I was just looking back over the record of the increase in the budget and the years that I was on the Financial Planning Committee of the years when there was the lowest tax increase. So if I get re-elected, I'll go back on that committee. One thing I proposed at the last council was that we need to adopt a policy of zero growth. most of the environmental problems in the world are due to the result of growth. And, we can't sort of preach, protecting the environment and growing our organization and demanding more taxes, that then people have to do more in order to pay those taxes. The other thing is the other principle, so one of those principles I want Island Trust to consider is the principle of zero growth. And the other is, one of the others is also to, as some local governments have done, is to tie increases to CPI. So there's a couple of scenarios I'd like to explore with the next council. We went through a period of having to build up the necessary reserves and also some staff, and I think I personally cannot justify any further increases. I think we've got what we need to do the job. So that's the approach that I'll be taking when I go back to council, and I will be looking to serve on the Financial Planning Committee to have an earlier and more intimate say in how the budget's being created.
I spent a couple hours on the phone in a conference call with the Chief Administrative Officer of the Islands Trust, and during that conversation I asked her, it appears that the Islands Trust is in fact largely funded through taxes, property taxes. And as far as I know, the trust lost much of its outright government subsidy back in 2005. I said, if it's true that the trust is in fact funded by property taxes, is that a conflict of interest that would drive the trust to obviously encourage more development, to encourage more tax revenues? And the answer was no. We would get the same revenues whether taxes went up or down, whether development projects went forward or not. So that was the official response to the question. But I am concerned that I am concerned by mission creep, if you will, a term that we are hearing in other contexts, as the trust looks to expand its influence, perhaps expand its powers, as all bureaucracies do. It needs money to do that, and if those monies come from taxes, I think we need to keep a sharp eye on that.
Oh, I'm going to say that I can't respond to that question with an informed opinion because I need to have more information for myself.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Of course, logistically speaking, the Islands Trust is quite a unique organization in the fact that it's a bunch of different islands, so planning staff have to mobilize to get to each island. I suppose in a perfect world, our planners would live closer to where they're doing the planning, not out of Victoria or Nanaimo. That's in a perfect world. So in terms of what we can do moving forward is to hold the cap where we're at. I think that bureaucracies tend to grow bigger just to keep the bureaucracy alive. So I think that people that are adamant that that shouldn't happen should be at the Trust Council table. And certainly the colleagues I've worked with over the years, that seems to be the thing. I really think the problem is just logistics. I think that it's, you've got all these different islands, you've got all these different communities, and it's really expensive to administer, and that's the reality. I think that ultimately the province dropped the ball because they said, here's the Islands Trust Act, you guys administer it, it's all good, we'll give you 900,000, we'll give you so much money. Well, as time has gone by, their contribution has dropped almost to nothing, and it's like we're still holding the ball. So ultimately, I think that because the province brought in the Islands Trust Act, they should be starting to come back and help us maintain what we're doing. Because, to put it all on us working people, retired people, it's not fair. So that's my feeling.
Just to pick up a bit on that last point Ron made, there's certainly a fairness issue there, I think, although I can't see the government changing it, but in fact, this is for the area is for all of BC's residents, and I think all of BC's residents benefit in various ways. One of the reasons for the growth in taxes recently was the move of the offices away from Victoria. There had been comments made and a lot of pressure put on to get the planning departments closer to where the action was, closer to the island. So we now have an office on Gabriola Island serving the northern region, which is great. The planning staff there are super planning staff, and the trust has been attracting really good planners. They are young people from planning schools, a lot from UBC, and they are very good, I find. I have tremendous respect for what they do. But it was an expense to do that. Our last budget, which we passed a couple of months ago, started out with a recommendation from the Financial Planning Committee of a 6% increase in taxes. The feeling around the table, 26 reps from 13 islands, was that that just wasn't on. It would be a very hard sell back in communities. Discussions ensued, things were cut, and the final budget ended up as a 1% increase over the previous year, which was less than the cost of living. So the trustees certainly, it's a shared concern about the fact that taxes do fund the trust and everything we do, and that those taxes come from you and me, and they need to be safeguarded as very much as we can, as best we can. And yes, to looking at a cap or a zero growth, I think now's the time. I think we've got a good staff now that we can work with.
Is there any question from the floor?
I got one. I can get over here without tripping on something. Doug Christie, who now has the mic on, I think. Doug Christie. Thinking about this, I'm concerned that Hornby may have lost its soul. And who am I to talk about this? Well, I first came to Hornby 42 years ago. We joined the Hirra Rocks. We camped there every summer until we moved here. So Tony says the Islands Trust had its start in the provincial legislation. No, the Islands Trust had its start on the beach at Hirra Rocks. Over many years of discussions, and it was Sandpiper that did it. And other islands had the same discussions, and those people demanded something be done. So that's how I can speak about Hornby over a long term. I don't think we've defined where we want to go and preserve and protect. I hear some people who say they want to go back to 1973. What the population was then, that was just comfortable. I hear people say we should have a year-round restaurant. I agree with that. I hear people say that some parts of Four Corners was good. I agree with that too. But that is my question. What have you got to say to this? Do we know where we're going? And if we don't, how do we find out? Everybody.
I think that people that live here now are happy with the Hornby that they're living on right now. I think they see some deficiencies. I certainly see deficiencies. I think there's too many people struggling to find year-round accommodation or whatever. People that are service providers, people that are part of committees, part of the Parent Advisory Committee. We need, if you ask me where we're going, in an ideal world, we're going toward where people are secure in their housing and they have opportunities for economic enhancement for themselves, either through home occupations or through a very moderate, well-consulted management of commercial options on Hornby.
one thing that articulates for me, Doug, is the community vision that over 50% of the community participated in 2003 that visualizes what the community would be in the year 2020. And I look at that on a regular basis. And I know Raina did a number of articles in the first edition, kind of checking where we are. There's sort of internal and external challenges. And one of the things, when I came to Hornby, I felt like it was a family-centered community, a kid-centered community. And to me, part of what, in terms of the soul of the community is that it needs to be diverse. It needs, have all less grey-haired folks, but we need to have the vitality of younger people to keep us alive. And that's something that's facing all rural communities in this region, probably us more than others because of our remoteness and the challenges of housing and home and livelihood. And I think we can do both. I think we can protect the environment, protect the character, and maintain the vitality. One thing that encouraged me is seeing a number of young people that have grown up here continuing to live here or coming back to live here. That means a lot to me. I remember when they were kids, and it's great to see them here as adults. We've got over about a third of the island protected, almost another third of the island in the agricultural land reserve. We've got a good chunk of land in the public use area. And I think we need to look at creative ways of being able to accommodate people without putting a big impact on the land. We always look at density, but I think what we have to look at is what's the impact on the environment and the impact on the land, and I think there's creative ways to do that. And I see potential synergistic relationships of older people being able to age in place by having a younger person living with them. That helps the younger person get a foothold on the land, some continuity, be able to participate in the workforce, and supports an older person being able to stay on their property. So I think we need to sit down and creatively discuss those kind of options to sustain our community while keeping the environmental values intact.
I was very proud when the Trust Council met here on Hornby in March of this year, to tour the group around on a bus and to be able to stop outside elder housing and describe how that development occurred and the amount of input from a wide range. Recently, a visitor who I was taking around and stopped at the new clinic described the input from everybody on that, including work and dollars and just community will that was behind building the clinic. I'm involved with a group called Community Action Solutions Together. CAST is the acronym, which is a bunch of nonprofit organizations on Hornby that have been meeting for the last 3-4 years to offer mutual support, collaboration, and information to each other. That's happening again at the end of November. It meets about once or twice a year. That level of involvement of caring through a wide range of various nonprofit organizations, through a wide range of cooperative organizations, is what Hornby, I think, is about a lot. We're rooted in cooperation and in cooperatives, all the way from Hirra to Syzygy and Shire and Downs Point, and I see that continuing. I see that strength is remarkable, and I see this as a remarkable community. And I would see, my vision is 20 years from now, that we will continue to reflect those roots, that the caring we see that's rooted in the community and in this natural setting, that we'll be continuing to safeguard that. We'll be very caring about it.
Do we know where we're going? Maybe not. I don't think we do. But I think maybe, do we know where we want to go? I think we can answer that. And in terms of Tony mentioning, yes, the vision, it was a vision of an ideal Hornby in 2020. It was written 8 years ago. We have another 8 years before 2020 comes. It has some great ideas. Whether they can be fulfilled in the next 8 years, that's a big question, but we can at least work towards these in little increments instead of starting with these big projects all the time. Let's look at things, and let's look at a commercial zone for economic opportunities. Let's look at let's look at, because I find it very heartening already that Hornby Island has got a lot of, we have a baby boom right now. We have a lot of young families that are actually managing to stay here, which is really great. They actually have a place to live. And if we just continue that base, continue having the elderly live as long as they can in their houses, and have elder housing, which has a nice sort of, what do you call it, a little cycle where people go in and out, and it just seems to work out very well. And maybe we do have to sit down and wonder where we're going in more detail and have more specifics than just the vision statement.
I had an interesting luncheon conversation last summer with a visitor who, like many, has been coming up here for many years, and she said to me, Hornby is losing its funk. And I thought, yeah, I think that's actually true. And then I thought, well, maybe that's not such a bad thing. Maybe we're growing up. We're certainly growing older, for sure. And the strength of our community is that we all feel at home on this island. We all feel at home, and we make each other feel at home with each other. However, as a journalist, keeping my eye on the weather radar, I would respectfully suggest that we are facing some challenges that could see some harder realities intruding on our kinder visions. One of the very first, of course, and it's been mentioned tonight, is that we are facing an invasion of smart meter radiation. And I will tell you that the effects of this on populations from California to Toronto are already very negative in many different ways. We can go into that later, but radiation is radiation. Higher hydro bills are higher hydro bills, and having your activities tracked in your home, I think, are very invasive to this community, and that invasion is imminent. Further down the road, we're looking at more extreme weather events. Whatever you think about that, the events are happening, could affect our ability to grow food. But I am most particularly concerned that we are now in the age of post-peak oil. We really haven't felt it yet, but all indicators are, from military to governments to experts around the world, we are about to really face a crunch of rising oil prices that will not come back down. That is going to challenge us, challenge our ability to get on and off the island by ferry and to conduct our business here. And we have to start thinking about alternative ways to get around and get done what we need to get done.
My question is about smart meters. Thanks to Alex and Will for bringing up the topic. I think it's a vital topic right now for our island. I know that our current trustees have called for a moratorium on the proposed installation of smart meters across the island. And I would like to hear from each of the candidates your opinion on this topic of smart meters.
I'd like to jump back into that. Thank you, Amanda. I'm a founding member of the Hornby Citizens for Safe Technology, and I urge you to check out our little organization and an upcoming meeting that will be posted for all of the community to participate in. We are forming alliances with Salt Spring, which is front and center in this struggle to keep smart meters off of our islands, and we are looking to expand our alliance throughout the Gulf Islands. What I would like to see is the trust take the next step. Are you ready for this? And declare the Gulf Islands a smart meter-free zone, and move to make sure that any smart meters that have been installed, I am heartened by your response, thank you, are taken out. We have devised Defense in Depth, which we'll be hearing more about. I don't have the time to go into it, but be assured we are taking active steps to keep smart meters and the radiation and all the other intrusions associated with it off of our island, and I am front and center in that fight.
As the riverbed said, my sentiments exactly, Will. And we have a collar on our house. We have a sign that's right next to our meters saying "Don't touch it, Corex." We're going to be putting more signs. We're going to have trespassing signs. we're on the, if anybody knows Kara Snowden, you get a lot of emails on that daily. So yes, I'm very much concerned about smart meters, and I understand Will's told me that we could get to the point where we might actually blockade and not even allow them on the island to even touch our meters. So it's still, it's the information regarding the medical effects on people is growing and growing. There's court cases everywhere. It's a big concern, and I really think that everybody should wake up, and we've got to just, if it's a matter of blocking the island, let's do that, because we're not alone.
The request for a moratorium did go in from not only here, but the Trust Council went to the Union of BC Municipalities meeting at the end of September, and the UBCM also requested the government to put a moratorium on installation until more was known and people were sufficiently satisfied that there was not an issue with their installation. That's happening. That the response from government was at that time, thank you for that request, but the installations will proceed. At the moment, it's set for installations are set for July for Hornby. I've agreed to chair a meeting probably in January with the BC Hydro representatives coming to the island to hear directly from us about our concerns, if you should have concerns, and for us to hear directly from BC Hydro why they feel this is a good thing to do, why it's an economical thing to do. And I'm looking forward to that meeting. I'm looking forward to a good discussion, a reasoned discussion. The science is out there. It's one of the first I heard it in terms of a balanced approach to that science actually was Dan Brazier's paper, Dan, in the audience. Credit to you for that. It's not a simple matter, and you say that meeting in January, I'm looking forward to that, and we'll be interested in that dialogue.
Yeah, I'm certainly troubled by the technology. I think that it's caused enough of upset in this community and other communities that I support the idea of a moratorium. I think that we need more science to make us feel that it's okay. I'm quite certain that it's not okay. I might recommend anyone in the audience that is looking for a way to protect their old meter that they have on their house right now is to phone Pat Perry at 335-2528, and he will install a old meter protector unit. And the only way that they can put the smart meter is to get that off, and they can't do it legally. So that's my advice.
Yeah, in June I brought a resolution to Trust Council which passed unanimously to express concerns of the residents of the Trust area to BC Hydro and ask them to consult with communities. And the representative of BC Hydro did come meet with Fred and myself and Daniel, and agreed to come back for a community meeting which will probably happen in January. And since then I realised, well, it's not really BC Hydro, because the province have kind of set them up. And they just putting communities in conflict with BC Hydro. So then I went back to the last Trust Council meeting with a resolution which also passed unanimously for the Islands Trust to write to the province to again express concerns, to ask for a moratorium, and to ask for what should have happened in the first place. Was before this project was the province brought in legislation directing BC Hydro to do this, is to do the due diligence and refer it to the BC Utilities Commission to do independent research, independent assessment of the public interests and public concerns. And that step was not done, and the province have put us all in this terrible conflictual position where on the one hand BC Hydro is saying that they're well within their safety limits, and there's a lot of data out there that challenges those safety limits. And I think we've got to direct our anger and our demands at the province. We did bring our MLA over last week or the week before One of the surrogate reasons in my mind was for him to hear directly from islanders about this particular issue, and I've since followed up with a letter to him and a letter to Rich Coleman. And so, you know, we've got to put pressure on the province. It's their responsibility. They put both BC Hydro and us in a conflictual position, which is messy and horrible and totally unnecessary and inappropriate.
Kevin, and then Elspeth, and then Jen.
I'd like to address the invisible elephant in the room, elephant that couldn't show up. Two of you will be elected Islands trustees, and you sit on the council of 3 local trust committee. The third person is parachuted in by head office down in Victoria. In this case, she or whomever comes with an agenda. They're the custodians of the agenda, but we're the custodians of the process. And for the number of times that I've been to, and that I can stomach going to these meetings where I see the current chairman, or and perhaps it's all chairman, I don't know, inflict the muscle and the perhaps even conflicted priorities on the local trust committee. And I've seen in this case, in her case, triangulating, getting 2 to overcome the other, or the other 2 to overcome the one. So much of process has been subverted here, yet 2 of you will be the custodians of process. What I'd like to have is a declaration, and please keep it short, focus, focus, focus. Keep your response short, 10 seconds, 15 seconds. When you see the third person, the chairman, with the agenda, subverting process, each of you tell us exactly what you're going to do to identify and deal with that subversion of process. You will be held to it.
Monsieur Chair or Madame Chair, this is a Hornby Island issue. We have people from Hornby Island in the audience today, and our job is to represent their values. So I would appreciate if you kept your opinions more focused towards how we run a meeting as opposed to your opinions on them.
When the Islands Trust was set up, there originally were 5 trustees, 3 general trustees from elsewhere and 2 local trustees.
Just a short
I think I'm allowed to speak for a minute or 2. And if you, at the regional district, if we were to the Islands Trust, we had the regional district, then the decisions would be made with a whole bunch of people that didn't live here. We just have 1 representative. And we are a federation, and part of the mandate is to preserve and protect the islands for the residents and the people of British Columbia. So there's both a local mandate and a provincial mandate. And I think the theory behind the legislation is that the chair, to some extent, represents the provincial mandate, the broader interests, and the 2 local trustees represent the local interests. And we've had different chairs, and different chairs. And I think it's important to realise that the chairs are not appointed by head office. They're elected by the 26 trustees, so they're kind of one of us, so to speak. And I've been a vice chair, and you're given a lot of orientation about the process and what your responsibility is. And mine has always been to try and support the local trustees and help them work through the issues when I was a vice chair. But they are a full member of the committee. The local trustees are the majority, and I think we try and find a way to work through things together. And each chair, as I said, has a different style. I didn't really get what you mean about subverting the process. I find it very hard to answer the question, but I don't really understand what's meant by that.
As a new trustee, I was approaching the first meeting with a lot of interest, and one of the first things our chair said from Denman Island was, in terms of her role, I am here to chair the meetings, to conduct the process, and if you 2 trustees, Tony and myself, if you're not able to come to agreement, to a consensus, then I do cast the third vote that would would change it. And she said, my hope is that the discussion will generally lead to a position where I won't be put in that position very often. And indeed, over 3 years, I can remember, I think only one, maybe 2 times when that deciding vote was cast. The intent is for the 2 trustees really to voice where the island is, where Hornby is, and for the chair to be sure that the process of whatever is followed. And our chair this year had a very, she was rigorous in that. She was clear and certainly maintained order. Within that, should we not hesitate to say, whoa, I think, as we did a couple of times, that when the chair was saying, no, we won't hear from that person, we said, we would like to hear from that person, and indeed that occurred. But generally, we found, I think you review the resolutions, you'll find a consensus, a unanimous votes on by far the great majority. 15 and a half seconds.
Well, I had concerns with the particular chair in this last term being from Denman Island and various conflict of interest. I would hope that the next chair would be from an island that's a little further away from us. I think we can tend to see the Hatfields and McCoys, Denman and us, and I would, if we were in a position, one would hope that the 2 trustees would not have to come disagree and agree on something and not even have to bring the chair involved in breaking the tie. So if there was conflict of interest, I would say want that person to step out in the meeting and just, if she doesn't, we'll drag her out. But, yeah, okay.
Correct me if I'm wrong, I thought at one point she was asked to recuse herself and said, no, that's not necessary, and may not have been. My answer to your question does not take 15 seconds, it's real quick. Stop. I think it's the trustee's role to see that he or she feels that anyone in a meeting is out of line and the chair is responsible or not acting, then it's our responsibility to say stop. Going quickly beyond that, there's a lot of concern voiced about an off-island person casting decided votes in a tie, and I would like to see the process somehow amended or at least discussed so that if we're discussing a critical issue and the 2 trustees are deadlocked, everything stops. And this goes back to the community, it goes back to perhaps the APC or a relevant organization for input, comes back the next meeting to the trust. Then if the 2 trustees are still deadlocked, and we hope they're not, if they are, then and only then does the chairperson cast the deciding vote.
Thank you for showing your cards.
I've got you all on a list. Yeah.
At least one answer.
So first of all, we're watching and keeping the list. Secondly, just a very gentle reminder to everyone to frame what you have to say as a question. The shorter the preface, the easier it is to get to the question. I really appreciate the good humor and the sense of responsiveness, because it's not easy for us to have to, hit the bell or go 15 seconds or, whatever. So just again, a gentle reminder that you have a minute to ask, try to make it a question, try to make the preface as short as you can so that it remains a question and answer period.
So Elspeth.
Not used to mics because I usually yell and scream and everybody runs. My question is, one thing about the Islands Trust Act is that, and it was just alluded to just recently, is that it's also for the general public. We are very fortunate to live on these islands, and when I was a trustee of Gambier Island, I really pushed to recognize visitors and people to come to these islands, because we are really fortunate. Most people cannot afford to live here like we do. So my question is to Ron and Alex and Will, because the other two trustees have made their have made notice when they gave third reading to the bylaw for the short-term rentals. My understanding of the situation is, from all I have read and listened to other people, is the majority of people were very happy with the OCP as it stood before, and are not happy with these new bylaws that are coming in. And these new bylaws are very restrictive in terms of having visitors visit this island year-round and add to the economics of the island. So I would like to know your three stand on what you would do, because it's got to come to fourth reading, and I think we have an opportunity. Thank you very much.
As I was involved with the community plan that introduced the policy for short-term rentals, certainly there was no mention of the detail of restrictions that were in the recent bylaws. So I think to that degree, I think the spirit of the OCP was somewhat broken by how things advanced. I think it was trying to find a solution that made everybody happy, but in the process didn't make anyone happy, which happens from time to time. So I think that because we are at a point where it's coming up for adoption, I think that we have to take a sober second look at it and proceed from there.
I understand that in fact or in practice, incoming trustees have a kind of a grace period to look at bylaws recently passed and take another look at bylaws under consideration. Of course, bylaws can be amended or rescinded at any time, but there seems to be some kind of a tradition, if not in practice, that when the regime changes, if you will, we can take another look at these bylaws, and that's an excellent time, in my opinion, to take another look at this pending legislation, and I am totally on board with that. Again, my operative word is stop. Let's see what we can take from all of the work and effort that's gone into this bill, or bylaw, I should say, that people have consensus around, and let's look very hard to address the issues, as I said earlier, particularly of outlawing year-round rentals. This is not the way this island needs to go. We need to spread out rentals into the winter months, and off-season we must accommodate workshops and get more tourists here in the winter. It would be hardly disruptive to get a few more vehicles over here. But yes, I'm all in favor of having another look at this bylaw, not to throw it out, but to address the concerns, very legitimate concerns that people have, and also this very ambiguous language. People are concerned that this thing's going to spring up and bite them someday because of selective enforcement. And as a writer, as a journalist, I will say to you that I'll do my very best to work hard at making sure that our bylaws are written in a way that is understandable, not just in legalese, and not with the assumption that when you read a sentence you know that there's 15 paragraphs it's alluding to. And we need to make very clear why a bylaw is necessary. There's a lot of questions. Why do we even need to do this? Why it's necessary, and what this bylaw says. So stop this bylaw and have another look.
I understand there's a lot of people on the island that are quite happy with the whole process that the vacation rental agreement has become, and the hard work that the trustees have put through, but there's a big chunk of people out there that are not happy. And from what I've been listening to people so far, is that it's to do with the year-round. It's to do with you're killing people's livelihood. There's people that do workshops, yoga retreats. There's people that just want to come for 2 nights. People have retreats and yoga courses or whatever that are only for two nights. Why can't they come in the winter? And And it's just employment opportunities throughout the year. I mean, rentals do have people cleaning the houses, and they have landscaping and gardening and whatnot. But I really think that we have to look at this, or the next trustees do have to look at it again and really try and make the community happier in terms of the winter side, the September to May. Otherwise, you know, it's just going to divide the community further, and it's not the community's wishes, from what I hear.
So everybody? Okay, so Jennifer.
That was my question answered.
Okay, Gina, right?
I'm speaking as a parent in this regard. Right now, the school has hardly any kids, and it's true what you say, there has been a minor baby boom. I don't know how many of those kids are actually going to be living on Hornby Island long enough to get to first grade here. A lot of families ship off pretty quick. There's a cycle of kids, they come through. And I believe a part of that is because there's a real problem with housing, and there's a real problem with being able to earn a living. Most of the young people on the island are doing home care, cleaning, and service things. There's a heck of a lot more potential in our young people that are here. We could have small businesses, we could have little cafes, we could run galleries. There's so many interesting, fabulous things we could be doing instead of just that. And I'm wondering if you are going to address maybe finding creative ways to use land to create housing. You've addressed this a little bit, but to allow young people an opportunity to open a business so that we're not just cleaning for people. I'm just wondering if you guys are thinking about that, and if you are, tell me some of your ideas.
Yeah, I was just reading the very first planning study done of Hornby Island in 1972, and people then were saying, you know, there's so few opportunities for young people, and it's a challenge being a small, remote community, and you're right, we do need to come up with creative ways. And because a lot of our economy is based on, in the past, is people having 2 or 3 jobs, you know, having a studio doing something creative, having a seasonal job, having a part-time job, and having been able to access land fairly cheaply in order to get established. And it's very hard for young people to kind of repeat that lifestyle that many people that are now my age were able to establish. So in terms of land use, there's a number of ways to do it. One is looking at residential properties and home occupations. So one thing our community plan supports, and what we want to do in the land use bylaw, is look at expanding the range of home occupations that can happen on residential land. The other thing that we've done is looking at the whole public use area, which is this whole, I think, 1 square kilometre here, and added a whole bunch of uses that can happen, including a community trades and services area where you can have people established, and also zone for community housing. So I've actually put forward a discussion paper for establishing something like that, and there hasn't been a critical mass of interest to get together and make it happen. Another way is to look at it in existing commercial zoning and say, okay, what additional uses could be established at the existing commercial zones, whether it's a co-op zone or Forts Cove or wherever. Another way is to say, what are the criteria, you know, rather than just for pre-zoning commercial land, what are the criteria for rezoning land for commercial uses? So if something like the Four Corners application came in, there's some guidelines already in place of the things we want. Another way, we're one of the few islands where temporary use permits are allowed anywhere on the island, which means that anybody can put in an application to do something that they're not zoned for. And there was another way. Oh, the other thing too that's unique to our island is any large property can be considered, Fred was mentioning about cooperatives, any large property can be rezoned for a cooperative, which would allow for additional density based on the development plan for that property, which could also allow for, you know, small home-based businesses like Syzygy, which is a really good model.
Thanks, Tony. I took some notes. Here's a specific idea I've been giving quite a lot of thought to. Now, we know that there is money available for green initiatives sponsored by the provincial government. We know that our hydro rates are going to go up another 50% or higher. They've already announced this. The biggest return for your buck in terms of alternative energy is not solar panels, it's solar hot water heaters. And my fantasy, if you like, my vision, why in the world, we have the expertise here, why in the world can't we set up a workshop and build solar hot water heaters and retrofit houses here? Perhaps we can get grants to help homeowners install and use these systems, drastically cut your power bills, and get our young people involved as apprentices, paid in cash or in kind. I am really stoked on this, so if anybody else resonates with that, yes, let's talk, because this can be done. It's not complex technology. We have the skills, we have the tools. A couple of ferry loads would bring over the supplies, and we get our kids on board and get this community involved and start slashing those hydro bills.
Well, I'm gonna basically reiterate what I said earlier, which is basically looking at zoning and just opening it up for new businesses, year-round businesses, not just, I think we're very geared towards tourism here because that is really what we're all about, but it'd be really great if we could come up with a year-round sustainable industry or business or something. We could have a center, an arts center where people come and take courses, have an actual year-round. I mean, there's so many opportunities on this island because there's so many creative people that can teach, but we got to get the people over here. So I think we need to explore those with other agencies, local agencies from Hirra, and talk about the land uses and open it up for new businesses.
Yes, to the creative people that are here and that we see the results of that creativity. I'm thinking of at the Co-op Corner, the Beulah Creek Nursery is a new endeavor that emerged over the last couple of years, which is a super small business. The fruit stand that's a part of that as well. Tony mentioned the temporary use permit aspect of encouraging or allowing for new businesses. Ben's, one of his cafes was part of that, actually, that same property. He applied for a temporary use permit to have a kitchen there. That was something that went through the trust, and he was supported in that. A public use area, yes, it's in the right location, and it's the place where the new credit union is now, and around that area. To explore with the people the idea of a light industrial area, perhaps in that area. Right now, public use is limited. The Union Bay Credit Union is about as maximum sort of a traditional business as you're going to get, and that's there because it's a co-op. But that and yes, to Will's idea of green energy, we don't know what's going to be popping up there, but it's clearly we will be getting into green energy, clean energy, and if we can do that from a incremental basis, starting small, having small businesses, yes, we could we should be as a trust supporting that when we can.
I think it's really important that we as the community and the local trust committee engage people that are interested in doing some kind of development, be it a rezoning or someone that wanted to take on some of the property in the public use area. Because the reality is a lot of the infrastructure requires money. So if we approach anybody or they approach us, we have to have a strong spirit of cooperation and compromise so that they know that obviously our position is that we have to fulfill our mandate. You have an objective that you would like to reach, so we have to work together. And I think what's required for that to happen is having an open mind and being able to indulge the community so that they have as much input as we can get so that both sides are comfortable. Because as I say, it does take money and it's a reality, and we can talk about it till the cows come home, but none of us have pockets full of money, so we have to accept that reality, learn how to compromise, and make deals that work for us. The other thing is, I think, what the local trust committee can do, as I mentioned in my opening remarks, is do everything in our power to expedite the work that's being done for the land donation for Isla, to make that a reality so we actually see some shovels in the ground.
So it's almost 9:15. I thought maybe we take one more question from the floor and then give each of you 2 minutes to say something in terms of a closing statement. I know it's a surprise, but we thought it might be nice if you had a chance to have a word of your own choosing at this point at the end. And everybody can remember that any questions that you walk out of here saying, oh my God, why didn't I ask that one? Next Sunday afternoon, 3 o'clock, here, right? This next time it'll be April and me up here. So come back, or tell your friends to come, and we can have another one of these really good exchanges. So one more question from the floor.
Okay, what I would like to know is, I would like you to comment very succinctly, how would you assure that the maximum diversity of community opinion is present in the people who occupy the advisory planning committee? Like, how would you make sure that all of the diversity that's in this room and on the island is reflected on that committee? What would you do? What steps would you take to try and assure that?
I think I would start by trying to define what the various components of the community are. I think a lot of us have some intuitive feelings what those are. And to ensure that the APC has a voice from each part of that demographic on the island. I think that's been attempted to in the past. The problem is we're not all out of cookie cutters, like maybe I'm part of this demographic, but I might have different opinions than someone else in the same demographic. It's a difficult thing to do, but I think that's certainly the starting point.
It's a very hard thing to do because in my experience we get very few applicants for the Advisory Planning Commission because it's challenging work. I've always tried to make sure there is that diversity, and I've ended up trying to approach people, so you've got somebody who's a renter, somebody who lives in a small property, somebody who's in a large property, an older person, a younger person, somebody who's a parent, somebody who's retired, somebody who's been a part-time resident is now a full-time resident, or even in the past we've had people who are part-time residents. It's really hard, and as Ron says, just having somebody from that demographic, if you take any particular demographic, you can have a range of opinions within that. So I guess those of us who are elected to represent and listen to everyone in the community. What I see the APC is a number of people who are very diligent, and it's good to have a variety of perspectives to the table, who will bring up 6 other brains to kind of look at things in more detail than the average person does. And I've been really pleased with things the APC have brought up that we haven't or the planner hasn't. But I think it's really hard to find, to make sure it's representative. That's something I think we've always strived for, to make sure it's balanced so that the community, and both the committee and the local trust committee, have some sense of faith that the APC is somewhat representative of the community. But it's a really hard thing to achieve, even though we strive for it.
Thank you. We have, I think, a very representative APC now, and there's a builder, a carpentry finishing person, a person who is very involved in the community, in private nonprofit organizations and attending meetings, and a retired economist, always helps. We could do more. I think we should do more when vacancies come up to advertise more to attract more applicants. It is something that we don't see a lot of applicants come through when an ad goes out for a vacancy. It's a very valuable role the APC plays. I think, and I've said before, that we could make, and we must make more use of, we should make more use of the APC as a screening group. And we must ensure that that is as representative as we can make it.
When I served in the APC back in 2007, it was a pretty diverse group. I thought we did actually represent the community. There's about 4 age ranges in that group, but that's just 4 ages in that group. I mean, it's not representing the diversity of our community, and I don't know if we really will be able to in everything we do in all the committees. I mean, I think maybe perhaps if we had more of the public involvement and more encouraged to go to the APC meetings. And I often thought when I was involved in that, and it's a lot of work, and we had a lot of meetings when I was involved in it, and it would be nice to have a little stipend, actually, maybe $25 for our troubles. I always thought that would be maybe a good way to get us to really want to go out there. Money does talk a bit, but in terms of diversity, it's a hard one because we are very diverse in this community. We still actually manage to agree on a lot of things, and let's carry on that way. But in terms of, as Tony said, it is hard for people to want to join because of the fact that it's not paid and it's very hard work, and sometimes you don't feel listened to either.
Of course, I haven't served on the APC, but I am told that people that do serve on the APC, at least some of them, do feel that often they are not being heard, and I know they work very, very hard. I don't really know how to open this up further to the diversity expressed by our questioner. It's very tough, especially on this island when everybody already belongs to 15 different organizations, 20 different committees, has meetings every 3 nights. I'm exaggerating slightly, but I think only slightly. Just out of left field here, I think it might be interesting to see if some of our organizations could look at each other and see if they could actually come together and coalesce into a single organization. I think we have enough, perhaps even too many organizations on this island, and it might be more effective and more time effective for people to consolidate similar interests, if that's possible, thereby freeing up the talent, the creativity, and the diversity expressed for the APC. And yes, I'm all in favor of a stipend, not so much to support people's livelihoods, but to at least make the gesture and give that recognition and acknowledgement to people who put in so much hard work. And finally, I would like to say that I am somewhat dismayed that to see, once again, we do not have any women sitting up on this behind this table tonight. I know you're probably busier than we are, smarter than we are, but we miss your participation. So I would like to see, personally, I would like to see that voice, that perspective, and that intelligence reflected in a body such as this.
So in keeping with Will's words, I just want to let you know that we purposely wanted to have this session on Monday night so that tomorrow night Hirra was not sponsoring a meeting because Wednesday night is Hirra meeting time. So we hope you'll come back for that too. Just think, right? Wednesday Hirra, Sunday another candidates meeting, and how many meetings in between?
Tuesday night yoga.
Tuesday night yoga! There we go. We all need some yoga in between meetings. Okay, so I'm doing that just to stall for a moment to give you guys a chance to think. I thought since we went this way at the beginning, maybe we'll go this way at the end. 2 minutes each just to say whatever you feel like saying as a closing.
I want to take this opportunity to just say thank you. I've been on this island for 11 years. I've kept pretty much to myself. And yet during that time, this community has taken me in, it's supported me, in some cases it's loved me. And I want to give something back. That's why I'm up here tonight. And again, thank you so much for giving me a home. I've never lived any place on this planet as long as I've lived on Hornby, and I intend staying on Hornby. And it's because of you, it's because of this island and this very, very beautiful place.
Yes, thank you all for coming. It's a great turnout. It's amazing. And on a Monday night. And I would just like to say that if I don't know anything, I will research it. I'm a very big person on researching. I like footnotes in the bottom of books, and I'll carry on and on. I can offer you energy, enthusiasm. I care about this island, and I want us to have a collective wisdom in pretty much everything we pass and do on this island. And thank you.
Thank you. First came to Hornby in 1972 as a visitor with Bevan Savory, who some of you may know. He's since passed away. And owned property since 1978 and moved here in 97. It's a love affair with the island since first coming here, and fully appreciate the opportunity that I've had to be able to have property here and to live here. Since 97, I've been involved in a lot of organizations on the islands, starting with the festival and then the Arts Council, and then 3 terms with the Residents and Ratepayers Association as president of that organization. Learning a lot about the community and about the things that are important to Hornby Islanders. One of the reasons I ran as trustee 3 years ago. And I ran thinking things would be fairly simple, that the idea was to update the OCP and the LUB and then get on with business. 3 years later, I learned a lot that is not a simple thing, that there is a lot to the Islands Trust Federation, there's a lot to the Islands Trust Local Trust Committee here. I'm wanting to put that knowledge, which comes after countless, 44 meetings, all sorts of hearings and energy and time put into a second term, to be, as someone an older trustee mentioned, training wheels are off and I'm up and running. Just a word about if I may, have I got how many seconds?
9.
Short-term rentals, I'm really pleased with the work we did on short-term rentals over the last few years. If I heard one thing, it was, can't you guys get that wrestled to the ground? We've been hearing this for years, and I think we did wrestle it to the ground. I think the short-term rental permitting in all areas, it's permitted in all areas with restrictions. That have been some restrictions. I encourage people to look at the bylaw that is there. I think it's a good bylaw. The advertising, yes, throughout the summer, and come back Sunday.
So a couple of things. Just want to say that the Trust Council table, there are more women than men, so even though you don't see guys here in the Islands Trust, we have our share of women, more than a share of women, so that's great. I feel uncomfortable with these tables separating us and you, because I feel like we're all family and we have particular roles here, but whoever you elect, we can't do a job on our own. And I really enjoyed this evening hearing the questions, but I also know lots of people didn't hear from that I know have got thoughts and questions, so please hit us up. I'm not going to knock on doors, I'm too shy, it feels really intrusive. I'm not very good at approaching people and intruding in this space, but I'm really welcome for people to come to me, so pick up the phone, hit me up anytime with your questions and concerns, because I want to hear from all those people we didn't hear from today. And keep coming to the meetings. I know meetings are boring. I mean, Tom Knott said democracy involves going to meetings, and it's not fun, just like changing the oil or doing the dishes, but it's things you have to do to make things work. And my sole reason for running as trustee is to serve this community, and I can only serve this community if I hear what this community has to say and everybody's piece of the truth. So I can only do my job, or whoever's elected, if you're doing your job and as Fred says, we need to do more and more all the time of looking how to improve the lines of communication so that really works. So also want to hear ideas about how to do that. So thank you very much, everyone. I really enjoyed being here. And thanks again to Daniel and Jenny. And to everybody up here who I consider friends. It's great being up here with all these people with different perspectives and ideas.
Okay, and thank you for keeping your buckets of mud under your chairs. That was good. I guess the one thing that I'd like to leave you with is I was involved after the 2002 OCP started the process, I was on the steering committee. I was not an elected person at that point. I then got on the local trust committee. We brought the community plan through a number of community meetings, had lengthy discussions, came up with a document, brought it to public hearing, and had it turned into a bylaw, and that was in 2002. And here it is, 2011, we're still talking about policies in that document, and as I said before, some of the people that contributed to that plan have either moved on or not even with us anymore. And if you give me your confidence, I will ensure that that bylaw, or that community plan is enshrined in our land use bylaws so we can get on to the next step. Thank you very much, and thanks for coming.
Thank you all for coming. Have a good night.
All right.